The day the US military enters Taiwan is the day the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, will liberate Taiwan. Many young people in mainland China who grew up listening to this brainwashing slogan have been strongly triggered by the news of US special forces being stationed in Taiwan. They have dug up the remarks of CCP military expert FANG Bing on the Douyin platform demanding an explanation. Once US troops enter Taiwan, it will mean direct military confrontation and conflict between China and the US. If it reaches that point, China will have no retreat. There is no possibility of retreat. The comment section is filled with remarks. Professor Fang, come out and take a walk. The military presence has been announced today. Professor Fang, it's your turn. Some netizens mockingly comment, quick, take a picture, keep the evidence, make sure to keep the evidence.
专家嘞？你们专家干嘛去了？专家
Where are the experts? What have you experts been doing? They're already here. They've already reached Kinmen. Where have all of you who profit under the guise of patriotism gone? Is this strong love of yours only something you talk about? Where are all the major rogue media outlets? Where are they? Where are your eyes? Is it all just talk? Can you show me some real action? Where have those who held signs strongly supporting the 731 anti-Japanese films gone? Those who belong to the rampaging groups, those receiving high pensions, what are you doing? It's truly sad, really sad. Do something real. They're already in Kinmen. The US Special Forces Support Foundation, SFF, recently released public information stating that SFF have already entered Taiwan and are being stationed long-term in Kinmen and the Penghu Islands. According to the 2023 National Defense Authorization Act, the SFF, specifically the Green Berets from the 2nd Battalion, Alpha Company of the 1st Special Forces Group, have been stationed at Taiwan's Army Amphibious Command Center in Kinmen and the Penghu Islands. This deployment marks the first time in over 40 years that US military forces have been stationed long-term on Taiwanese soil. As is well known, Kinmen and Penghu are located in highly sensitive areas, regarded as Taiwan's outer defense line. These regions are also seen as the areas that Taiwan would likely face initial attacks from in the event of a conflict. Particularly Kinmen, which is only about 2 kilometers away from Fujian, making it one of the most sensitive locations. The long-term deployment of US Special Forces is widely viewed as a disregard and mockery of the red lines set by mainland China. In earlier 2025, during a hearing in the US House of Representatives, retired Navy Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery stated that the current size of the US Joint Training Mission in Taiwan is approximately 500 personnel, and it should be expanded to 1,000 to build a combat-capable force. Rear Admiral Montgomery's statement confirms that the current size of US military personnel stationed in Taiwan is as high as 500. Taiwanese military blogger Zhou Zeding believes that there are 2 key figures in US defense policy at the moment. One is Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and the other is Deputy Secretary of Defense Elbridge Colby. Colby is the primary architect of US defense policy. Before taking office, he was very active on Twitter, often voicing his opinions. His strategy is very simple and can be summed up in one sentence: abandon Ukraine, concentrate forces in Asia-Pacific, and contain the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. Recently, the US stopped supplying air defense weapons to Ukraine, and it is said that this order came from Colby. It is clear that even if the US Department of Defense is willing to abandon Ukraine, it will not easily give up Taiwan. The signal from the US military is very clear, marking the official return of US forces to Taiwan. Some netizens have pointed out that the news of US forces entering Kinmen has exploded on social media, yet the Chinese regime has remained completely silent, not making a sound. In the face of the growing morale of Taiwan's military, the CCP's highest leadership dares not speak out, and various propagandists are too afraid to make any rash statements or actions. The entire atmosphere is quite eerie. So, why is the CCP's highest leadership staying so quiet? After all, the Taiwan issue is the most sensitive and face-threatening matter for the CCP. Why has it refrained from even a verbal protest or superficial gestures? The reason is that their lifeblood is being held by the United States. On July 21st, the U.S. House of Representatives unanimously passed the bipartisan Taiwan Conflict Deterrence Act, which mandates the government to disclose the assets held by CCP senior officials in the U.S. if the CCP initiates military action against Taiwan. The Taiwan Conflict Deterrence Act, introduced in February by House Republicans Conference Chair Lisa McClain and longtime pro-Taiwan Democrat Brad Sherman, targets members of the CCP's Standing Committee of the Politburo, as well as members of the Central Committee whose duties involve Taiwan. In May 2024, the U.S. Congressional Research Service, CRS, released a report revealing that senior CCP officials, including Xi Jinping, are implicated in corruption and have used their relatives to conceal vast wealth overseas. The report disclosed that Xi Jinping's family has hidden assets exceeding $700 million abroad. According to the report, by 2012, Xi Jinping had accumulated $376 million in corporate investments, indirectly holding an 18% stake in a rare earth mining company worth over $311 million, as well as $20.2 million in shares of a tech company. In March, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, ODNI, also published a report titled Wealth and Corrupt Activities of the Leadership of the Chinese Communist Party. The report notes that since Xi Jinping became the General Secretary of the CCP in 2012, his family has accumulated business interests and financial investments worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Although it is difficult to directly link these investments to Xi himself, these assets may have been indirectly managed by him. Lisa McClain said, "This bill sends a clear and bipartisan message. If the CCP rages war against Taiwan, there will be consequences. We're talking real, targeted consequences for corrupt CCP elites. Their financial dealings and offshore accounts will be exposed and published for the Chinese people to see." Additionally, the bill requires the U.S. Secretary of the Treasury to prohibit U.S. financial institutions from conducting significant transactions with the immediate family members of these officials. The Taiwan Conflict Deterrence Act must pass both the Senate and the House with identical text versions, and then be sent to the White House for the President's signature to become law. The Taiwan Conflict Deterrence Act was also passed unanimously in the House during the previous session, but it has not been scheduled for a Senate vote. Chen Shimin, Associate Professor of Political Science at National Taiwan University, said, "In response to the growing security threat from the CCP against Taiwan, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the Taiwan Conflict Deterrence Act. Its purpose, of course, is to deter CCP officials from even thinking about attacking Taiwan." He said, "I believe that for senior CCP officials who have significant influence over the decision-making regarding whether to attack Taiwan, this will certainly have a strong deterrent effect. After all, these CCP officials, including Xi Jinping himself, are highly corrupt." He continued, "Many of their assets in the US were acquired through illegal means, and then they used illicit money laundering methods to funnel the money into the US. So personally, I believe this bill effectively freezes the assets of CCP officials and exposes the information about their illegal transactions, which will have a substantial deterrent effect on these officials." Analysts point out that the Trump administration is taking a two-pronged approach. On one hand, it is intensifying efforts to push for deterrence legislation targeting CCP officials, aiming to minimize the risks of war. On the other hand, it is strengthening military cooperation with Taiwan, even announcing the long-term stationing of troops to directly thwart the CCP's ambitions of military action against Taiwan. The Green Berets are officially named the U.S. Army Special Forces. Their predecessor, the 1st Special Service Force, was established during World War II. The Green Berets gained prominence during the Vietnam War, where they carried out numerous infiltration operations and guerrilla warfare missions. Unlike other special forces, each member of the Green Berets must be fluent in at least one foreign language. If they fail to meet this requirement, even if they excel in other skills, they will be eliminated. In contrast, other U.S. Special Forces do not have this language requirement. Every Green Beret is battle-hardened and has the ability to train and command an infantry company during wartime. As part of the US Army Special Forces, they are frequently deployed to various countries around the world to carry out special operations missions in diverse environments. In 2014, when Russia annexed Crimea, US news outlet Fox News reported that the Ukrainian army had little to no combat capability and was unable to resist. Following this, Ukraine began modernizing its military, bringing in NATO instructors and undergoing NATO training. US Green Berets were sent to Lviv in western Ukraine to train the Ukrainian military. In March 2022, shortly after the war in Ukraine began, Russia launched a missile attack on a military training center, killing 35 people. However, by that time, US Special Forces had already withdrawn from the city and were relocated to Germany. In fact, the Green Berets have had a long history of cooperation with Taiwan. After the US broke diplomatic ties with the Republic of China in 1979, the US no longer stationed official troops in Taiwan. However, special forces, particularly the Green Berets, have continued to visit Taiwan to train its military. According to recent US media reports, the Green Berets are no longer rotating in and out of Taiwan, but are now stationed long-term in Kinmen and Penghu. The decision to station forces in Kinmen and Penghu is primarily due to the presence of Taiwan's elite Sea Dragon frogmen, specifically the 101st Amphibious Reconnaissance Battalion of the Taiwanese Army. The Sea Dragon frogmen are part of the Army Aviation and Special Forces Command and are responsible for special operations such as infiltration, reconnaissance, and intelligence gathering, as well as tasks like transporting and protecting government officials. Currently, their battalion is based in Kinmen, with reconnaissance units stationed in Kinmen, Penghu, and Matsu. The Sea Dragon frogmen were originally established under the instructions of former President of the Republic of China, Chiang Kai-shek, who directed Hu Lian, the commander of the Kinmen Defense Command, to form the unit. Later, the former Premier, Chiang Ching-kuo, renamed the unit. Initially, the unit was trained with the assistance from the US military and was known as the Success Battalion. It later incorporated the Matsu Reconnaissance Company and the Maritime Assault Team, evolving into the current Amphibious Reconnaissance Battalion, which is considered the most elite unit in the Republic of China's army. The soldiers of the Sea Dragon frogmen are carefully selected and undergo extremely rigorous training. During the Cold War, they carried out numerous secret missions, including multiple reconnaissance raids along the coastal areas of Fujian. Another Taiwanese elite special forces unit that collaborates with the Green Berets is the Airborne Special Operations Company, which is actually the high-altitude special forces of the Republic of China Army Aviation and Special Warfare Command. This unit, commonly known as the Liangshan Special Forces or Liangshan Ghosts, was established in 1980 and is currently the only unit in the Republic of China military with the capability to conduct land, sea, and air special operations. The members of the Liangshan Special Forces undergo extremely tough training. The first phase focuses on physical fitness, followed by combat skills training. They then undergo high-altitude parachute training in Pingtung, water infiltration training in Kaohsiung and Pingtung, and mountain and jungle warfare training, as well as Special Forces sniper training in Taichung. Afterward, they undergo snow training in high-altitude areas at 3,000 meters, with the entire Special Forces training cycle lasting for years. The unit is capable of operating in mountains, at sea, and in the air. The Liangshan Special Forces have also received international recognition. In 2006, Captain Chen Hongcheng and Sergeant Xu Tingwei of the unit went to Belize in Central America to attend an 8-week jungle warfare instructor training course, impressing foreign special forces with their capabilities. In addition, the US military has established a Special Operations Forces Liaison Unit in Taiwan, which has been operating since 2024 at a base in Longtan District, Taoyuan. This unit is responsible for coordinating all US Special Forces personnel activities in Taiwan. A series of actions by the US military indicate that the so-called red line set by the CCP is as intangible as air, and any fantasies about attacking Taiwan are now futile. Some netizens have commented that for senior CCP officials, no matter how important Taiwan is, it cannot compare to money. These officials have risked their lives and spent their entire lives striving for wealth. Money is their lifeblood. Now that their lifeblood is being controlled, they naturally have to back off. As for those patriotic experts and prominent figures, they make a living by flattering and promoting the policies of the higher-ups. When the higher-ups retreat, they too fall silent. Where they are now, I am not sure, but I do know where those so-called patriotic youth are. Two patriotic youth are squatting on the ground with a middle-aged man pointing at them and questioning why they stole a car. One of the youths says to the middle-aged man, "I'm kneeling for you now. Go ahead and hit me. If you want to call the police, I'll be completely done." The middle-aged man asks how many of them there are, and the young man replies that there are 3, but the other one who stole the car has already run away. The middle-aged man tells them to call him back, so the patriotic youth calls, but the phone is turned off. Netizens comment that this is the core group of patriotic youth and little pinks, often associated with the Chinese nationalist rhetoric and online trolls. They are uneducated, lazy, have extremely low awareness, and lack beliefs. The only way they elevate themselves is by waving the patriotism flag to intimidate others. However, these people are quickly losing their enthusiasm. When even basic survival becomes a problem, lying flat is the only option left. Moreover, it's been observed recently that there are more and more people in China who are waking up to the truth. The business of patriotism is becoming harder to sustain, and many Chinese influencers are afraid to openly support the US military presence in Taiwan. Instead, they use other topics to express their contempt for patriotic traitors.
那各位还有没有印象啊？就在2023年的时候，
Does anyone still remember that in 2023, a piece of news about Japan's nuclear contaminated water being discharged into the sea hit the top of trending searches and instantly sparked a heated debate? I remember that in just 3 hours, the viewership of this news surpassed 800 million, and the interaction reached a record-breaking 2.38 million people. The most common comment in the discussion was, "We can do without Japan, but humanity cannot do without the ocean." During that time, the internet was filled with all sorts of insults. Some people called for boycotting Japan, others said Japan should be wiped out, and there were even people like the Ironhead who engaged in performance art by urinating on the streets in Japan. Even more extreme was the formation of groups like the so-called Purge Team, claiming they would clean up the Japanese people in mainland China. So, do you think these people are brave? Are they genuinely condemning Japan from the heart? I think they probably only dare to speak out so fervently because they know that Japan can't do anything to them. They're willing to be so vocal because they can turn a blind eye to what's happening around them and what's actually unfolding. For example, the oil contamination from oil tanks, lead poisoning in Gansu, chromium poisoning in Henan, radiation in Fujian, and now the sewage in Hangzhou's tap water. So do the people of this country really love this land? Do they truly care about their loved ones and fellow citizens? I feel like most people don't. They don't love their fellow citizens, they don't love their partners, they don't love their colleagues or strangers, and they don't love the blue sky or the green earth. They don't love anything created by heaven, but they do love their country. When Japan started discharging nuclear wastewater, even though Japan publicly released daily data, had oversight from the International Atomic Energy Agency, compiled with international discharge standards, and invited reporters and experts from various countries to inspect, it still couldn't stop these so-called patriotic traitors from eagerly seeking out information, each one rushing to condemn Japan, fearing they would be left behind. But when it comes to their own affairs, they all play deaf and mute. So, when you were fiercely criticizing Japan's nuclear wastewater, did you ever think about today? Please, use the same level of effort and fairness to address these issues. Otherwise, just shut up and don't say anything more. Some netizens have pointed out that people might underestimate the cunningness of these patriotic traitors. They're always opportunistic, siding with whichever side seems to have the advantage. If the US military or Taiwan's armed forces were to invade mainland China, they would certainly be at the forefront, leading the charge. The true patriotic forces in China are now busy with petty crimes like stealing cars, while the rest have mostly laid flat. Chinese people no longer have the energy to be patriotic. Taiwan will never fall into the hands of the CCP.